Words are weapons, but what if they can destroy not only others, but ourselves as well? Some topics, like old wounds, should not be touched, for they may consume us, leaving nothing behind. The thoughts we hide are often more powerful than those we make visible. This video is based on Nietzsche's philosophy and will be of interest and benefit to those who are ready to see the world through the lens of profound reflection or wish to explore a philosophy that transforms one's perception of life. Well then, let us begin. Silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of power. You know this, though you have never admitted it, not even to yourself. There are subjects better left unspoken, for to expose them is akin to removing a blindfold. From eyes long accustomed to darkness, not every truth is ready for the light, and not every thought must be voiced. Words are keys, but to which doors do you aspire? Every sound that escapes your soul carries the echo of responsibility. Silence, however, demands no justification. Within it lies mastery. Over yourself, over the moment, over the world. Those who rush to fill the void with speech forget. Greatness begins where you control yourself, not the world around you. By avoiding certain discussions, you are not hiding, but protecting that which must remain untainted by prying eyes. You remain the master of your universe, not a slave to the expectations of others. Silence is a challenge only the strong can accept. Are you ready to hear why? Why religion should remain untouched? Religion is not merely belief, it is the sacred fire that burns within the soul of humanity. It demands reverence, not discussion, devotion, not dissection. When you speak of faith, you are not merely trading words, you are treading on the fragile ground of another's eternal truths. To debate religion is to risk pulling at the threads of a tapestry woven over centuries, unraveling the intricate fabric that holds communities, identities, and hearts together. Faith is not an argument to be won, but a sanctuary to be guarded. It exists beyond logic and reason, in a realm where words often fail. When you attempt to explain or confront it, you intrude upon something deeply personal. Something sacred. There is no neutral ground in this space. Every word, no matter how well-intentioned, has the weight of a blade. Silence here is not weakness, but wisdom. It is the acknowledgement that some fires, if disturbed, can consume more than they illuminate. To speak of religion is to risk igniting passions you cannot extinguish, for nothing burns brighter than the conviction of belief. In the stillness of unspoken respect, you find strength. You preserve not only your own peace, but the fragile harmony of those around you. Religion is the soul's private dialogue with eternity, and some dialogues are too profound for the noise of the world. Politics, the great divider of souls. Politics is the battlefield where the soul's convictions clash with the world's chaos. It is the seductive serpent that whispers promises of power, justice, and change, yet leaves behind scorched earth and shattered connections. To speak of politics is to wield a double-edged blade, one that cuts not only your opponents, but often your allies, your friends, your family. You believe you are expressing truth, but in reality, you are exposing yourself, your fears, your desires, your loyalties. Every word becomes a flag planted in contested ground, a signal of which side you stand on in an endless war. In the eyes of others, you are no longer a person, but a representation of everything they oppose. The political arena is not a place for unity. It thrives on division. It demands that you choose, that you condemn, that you fight. And in doing so, it erodes the bridges that bind us. Even the closest relationships can crumble under the weight of political disagreement, as the fire of ideology consumes the humanity of those who hold it. To engage in political discourse is to risk losing sight of what truly matters. Wisdom lies not in picking a side, but in understanding the futility of the battle itself. Silence here is not cowardice, it is clarity. It is the recognition that the noise of politics is a distraction from the deeper questions of existence, from the truths that unite rather than divide. In choosing not to speak, you protect more than your peace. You protect the fragile bonds that tie us to one another. The world will always shout about power, but the truly powerful are those who know when to remain silent. The private lives of others, the forbidden garden. To delve into the lives of others is to tread upon sacred ground, a garden not meant for your footsteps. The private life is a temple, its walls built from secrets, desires, and fears, known only to its keeper. To intrude, even with the best of intentions, is to desecrate that sanctuary. What you perceive as curiosity, they experience as violation. What you call concern, they may see as judgment. The lives of others are not yours to explore. Each person carries an invisible weight, a world unseen, composed of battles fought in silence and scars they've chosen to conceal. When you pry, you do not seek understanding. You seek power, the illusion of control over what was never yours. It is a theft of dignity, masked as innocent interest. And yet the temptation is relentless. Gossip feeds the ego with a sense of superiority, a fleeting satisfaction that comes at the expense of another's vulnerability. But this satisfaction is hollow, for it poisons the bonds that hold us together. The trust lost in such moments can never be fully restored, and the words spoken in shadows echo far louder than those spoken in light. True strength lies in restraint. To look upon the lives of others and turn away is an act of respect, of self-control, of wisdom. You gain nothing by entering their garden uninvited, but you gain everything by guarding its boundaries. The private life is a mirror. When you peer into it, you see more of yourself than of the other. Do not let your reflection distort their reality. Instead, stand back, honor the walls they've built, and find solace in the sanctity of your own. Only then will you truly understand the value of what remains unsaid. Money and income, the veil of human fragility. Money is not merely currency. It is the mirror of human ambition, fear, and inadequacy. To speak of it openly is to lift a veil most prefer to keep drawn, exposing the raw nerves of envy, pride, and vulnerability. Every word about income is a declaration, not just of what you have, but of who you are in the unspoken hierarchy of society. The conversation about wealth is a dangerous dance. It masquerades as curiosity, but often hides darker motives: comparison, judgment, even resentment. To reveal your earnings is to unveil your place in the labyrinth of human valuation, where numbers define worth and silence protects dignity. In this arena, no one emerges unscathed. For the wealthy, the weight of their fortune becomes a target, inviting scrutiny, suspicion, and the quiet hostility of those who feel left behind. For the less fortunate, the discussion ignites a flame of inadequacy, a reminder of battles lost or yet to be fought. In either case, the act of speaking transforms money from a tool into a weapon, sharp and unforgiving. Silence here is not avoidance. It is wisdom. It is the acknowledgement that some truths, while factual, are never neutral. To guard your financial realities is to guard your soul from the corrosive forces of comparison and judgment. The worth of a person is not measured in coins, but in character, yet the world delights in blurring the line. By choosing not to discuss money, you preserve more than your privacy. You preserve your humanity. You reject the reduction of life to mere arithmetic, insisting instead on the immeasurable value of dignity. The silence around income is not an absence. It is a shield, a choice to rise above the noise of worldly valuation. In that choice lies your power. Beliefs and prejudices, The fragile armor of the soul. Beliefs are the fortresses we build to shelter ourselves from the chaos of the unknown. They are not mere thoughts. They are the pillars of our identity, the shields we raise against the relentless tide of doubt and despair. To challenge someone's beliefs, even gently, is to strike at the foundation of their being. It is to demand that they re-examine the ground beneath their feet, knowing full well that the act may leave them unsteady, even broken. But prejudices, those shadowy companions of belief, cling to the soul with equal tenacity. They are the unseen threads woven into the fabric of our convictions, disguised as wisdom or instinct. To confront them is to face the uncomfortable truth that we are not as pure, as rational as we imagine. And so we guard them fiercely, not out of pride, but out of fear, fear of what lies beyond their dissolution. Critique in this realm is rarely received as a gift. It is a sword, sharp and unyielding. Even the most well-intentioned words can be perceived as an attack, because beliefs are not just ideas. They are the armor we wear against the world. To strip that armor away is to leave one exposed, vulnerable to the unrelenting winds of uncertainty. Silence here is not cowardice. It is compassion. It is the recognition that the deepest truths are not taught but discovered, and that the journey to understanding must be taken willingly, not forced upon another. To speak against a belief is often to push its holder deeper into its embrace, for we cling most tightly to that which feels threatened. There is power in restraint, in allowing others the space to wrestle with their own shadows. The greatest transformations are born not of confrontation, but of quiet introspection. By choosing silence, you honor the sanctity of another's inner world, even as you strengthen your own. And in that shared stillness lies the potential for genuine understanding, a rare and precious gift. Family conflicts, the silent battle within. Family is the crucible where the raw materials of our lives are tested, where our deepest wounds and unspoken desires collide, sometimes erupting in chaos. To speak of family conflicts is to risk trespassing into a realm where forgiveness is fragile and resentment is a quiet poison. These are not mere disagreements, they are the tremors of the soul, reverberating through the very foundations of one's identity. When you share the details of a family conflict, you are not just recounting events, you are exposing the most vulnerable part of your being. Every word about your family is a shard of glass, cutting through the very fabric of trust and intimacy that binds those relationships together. The more you reveal, the more you risk losing not just the battle at hand, but the delicate ties that hold your world in place. These conflicts are not for the eyes of outsiders. They are private wars, fought behind closed doors, where only those who have lived through the storm can understand the full depth of the struggle. To discuss them is to invite others into a space too sacred, too painful, to be examined by anyone outside the circle. And once that space is violated, the healing process becomes more difficult, more elusive. Silence in this realm is the greatest act of respect. It is the acknowledgement that some wounds are too raw, too deep, to be exposed to the light of public scrutiny. You protect not just your family, but the sanctity of your own soul by refusing to share the intimate details of your struggles. The more you speak, the more you risk opening a wound that time and understanding may never heal. There is wisdom in restraint. In choosing not to speak of family conflicts, you choose to protect the fragile balance of love, loyalty, and pain that exists within those relationships. You allow time and space for reconciliation, for growth, for healing, without the interference of external judgments or opinions. The true strength lies in knowing what to keep private, what to guard, and when to let silence be the balm that soothes the soul. Financial debts and obligations, the hidden chains. Money is the currency of power, and debts are the invisible chains that bind us to the world's demands. To speak of financial obligations is to expose oneself to the harsh gaze of judgment, for debt is more than a matter of numbers. It is a reflection of our worth, our failures, our hidden struggles. To disclose this part of your life is to lay bare the darkest corners of your soul, to let others see not just your financial state, but your deepest fears and vulnerabilities. There is no humiliation greater than the admission of owing what you cannot repay, for it is a breach of the unspoken contract we all hold with society, that we are self-sufficient, capable, whole. Debt shatters this illusion, revealing us for what we truly are: human, flawed, imperfect. The shame associated with financial struggles is not born of the amount owed, but of the fear that others will see us as weak, unworthy, incapable. And yet, the act of discussing debt can be as dangerous as the debt itself. To share the details of your financial burdens is to invite others into a space of insecurity and fear, where the weight of your obligations becomes their own judgment. What they may see as a simple number, you experience as a crushing weight on your spirit. Silence. Here is not cowardice, but a refusal to let others define you by what you owe. It is the recognition that true strength lies not in the amount of your wealth, but in the way you carry your burdens, quietly, with dignity, without seeking the validation or pity of others. By withholding the details of your financial struggles, you protect not just your reputation, but the very core of your identity. There is power in the unspoken. By choosing not to share your debts, you retain control over how you are seen. You refuse to be defined by your obligations, knowing that they do not determine your worth. In the silence of financial matters, you find the freedom to rise above the weight of your debts, to rebuild, to transform, without the judgment of the world weighing upon you. Personal phobias and fears, the shadows we bury. There is a darkness that lives within every soul, a place where the light of reason cannot reach, a place where our deepest fears are kept, not to be seen by others, not even to be acknowledged by ourselves. Fears are the silent chains that bind us, the invisible walls that trap us in our own minds. To expose them is to expose the very fragility of our existence, to admit that we are not invincible, that we are vulnerable. Phobias are not mere reactions. They are the expressions of our deepest insecurities. They are the raw wounds of the psyche, untouched by logic, impervious to reason. To reveal these fears is to stand naked before others, to let them see the broken parts of us that we have spent so much time trying to hide. It is to admit that we are not whole, that we are haunted by things beyond our understanding, things that control us in ways we cannot escape. To speak of these fears is to expose your innermost self to the world. But not everyone is ready for such exposure. The fear of being judged, ridiculed, or misunderstood is often more terrifying than the fear itself. We hide our phobias in the darkest corners of our minds, hoping that no one will ever shine a light on them, that no one will ever see the cracks in our armor. Silence in this matter is not weakness, but strength. It is the quiet recognition that some fears are too personal to share, too intimate to be understood by anyone outside ourselves. By keeping these fears locked away, we protect not just our pride, but our very sense of self. The more we speak, the more we invite others to see our weaknesses, and once exposed, they cannot be unseen. There is a certain power in keeping certain parts of ourselves hidden. By choosing silence, you retain control over your own narrative. You decide what parts of your soul are shared and what parts remain sacred. In the silence, there is also freedom, a freedom from judgment, from misunderstanding, from the vulnerability that comes with exposure. And in that freedom, you may Find the strength to confront your fears in your own time, on your own terms. Personal beliefs and ideologies, the fortress of the mind. Your beliefs are not mere thoughts. They are the very foundation of your identity, the walls that protect your innermost self from the chaos of the world. These convictions are the product of years of experience, painful lessons and triumphs, each one a brick in the fortress of your mind. To share them openly is not a simple act of communication. It is to dismantle the very structure that holds you together, to expose the raw vulnerability hidden beneath your intellectual armor. In this fortress, you are not just a person, but a reflection of all that you have fought for, all that you have endured. Your beliefs are the weapons you have forged in the fires of your own struggles, the shield you carry against the uncertainty of existence. When others seek to understand them, they are not merely seeking knowledge. They are seeking to find weaknesses, to probe the very core of who you are. To reveal your innermost thoughts is to invite others into the most sacred chambers of your soul, where the most personal and fragile aspects of your identity reside. And once those walls are breached, they can never be fully restored. In the world of ideas, there are few things more dangerous than vulnerability. To expose your convictions is to lay bare your deepest fears, your darkest doubts, your most unspoken desires. It is to invite judgment, ridicule, and misunderstanding, forces that have the power to erode your sense of self. Once your beliefs are out in the open, they no longer belong solely to you. They become fodder for the opinions of others, to be twisted, manipulated, and used against you in ways you cannot predict. Silence in these matters is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that some things are too sacred, too personal to be shared with the world. Your beliefs are your own, and they are not meant to be dissected or judged by those who cannot understand their true meaning. By keeping them to yourself, you protect the sanctity of your own mind, preserving the fortress that has taken so long to build. To speak of your beliefs is to risk losing their power, for once they are given to the world, they are no longer solely yours. Keep them hidden, not out of fear, but out of respect for the strength they provide you. Your convictions are the foundation of your inner world. To expose them is to invite chaos, and in that chaos, you may lose not just your beliefs, but your very sense of self. Secrets of the past, the chains of regret. The past is not merely a collection of events, it is a shadow that stretches far beyond the present, wrapping its tendrils around the soul. To speak of the past is to summon ghosts, to breathe life into the long dead, to unearth the graves of mistakes and misfortunes that we have long since buried. These are not stories to be retold. They are scars that mark our very being. Wounds we have learned to live with. To expose them is to invite the pain of a life that no longer exists, a life that is better left forgotten. Our past is like a chain, forged from regret and sorrow, the links unbroken as they pull us relentlessly backward. Each time we speak of it, we reinforce its hold, giving it power over us once more. The mistakes we made, the tragedies we endured, these are not merely memories. They are parts of us that we cannot escape. They are the roots from which our present selves have grown, and to dig them up is to risk destabilizing the very foundation of who we are. We often believe that by speaking of the past, we can release ourselves from its grip, that by re-examining our mistakes, we can somehow undo them. But the truth is far darker. To speak of our past is to drag it into the light, to confront the pain in a way that prevents it from healing. We expose ourselves to judgment, to the echoes of our own guilt, to the idea that the past defines us, that it can never be escaped. In this light, we are trapped, not by the past itself, but by the obsession with revisiting it. Silence, in this case, is not denial. It is a deliberate act of liberation. It is the quiet refusal to let the past dictate the present, the acknowledgement that some wounds are best left untouched, some memories better left to the shadows. By withholding the details of our history, we reclaim our power, refusing to let past mistakes govern our future. In the silence, we find peace, a peace that cannot be shattered by the weight of what we have already lived through. There is strength in the ability to leave the past where it belongs, behind us, in the dark corners of our minds, where it can no longer reach us. To speak of it is to invite its destructive power into the present, but in silence we find the freedom to move forward, unburdened by the chains of regret. The past will always be a part of us, but it need not define us. In the stillness, we find the courage to let it go. Creative processes and ideas, the seed of creation. Creativity is not a thing to be spoken of casually or too soon. It is the whisper of something that has not yet come into being, the spark of an idea that, like a seed, requires silence and solitude to take root. The act of creation is sacred, a quiet rebellion against the mundane, and the creative process is a journey that must be undertaken alone. To speak of an idea before it has fully formed is to risk suffocating it before it can grow. Ideas are fragile, delicate things that require time and space to bloom. They are not meant to be shared in their infancy, for they are not yet strong enough to withstand the weight of the world's scrutiny. The moment you expose them to the light, you expose them to judgment, to doubt, and to the noise of a world that may not understand. In the early stages, an idea is nothing more than a spark, a whisper in the dark. If you speak too soon, you risk extinguishing that spark, snuffing out the very thing that could have become something greater than yourself. The creative process is not a linear path, nor is it something to be rushed. It is a slow and deliberate unfolding, a quiet dance between the mind and the heart. Each thought, each word, each movement is part of a larger whole, something that cannot be fully understood until it has reached its fruition. To speak of it too early is to interrupt the natural rhythm of its development, to disturb the silence in which it grows. There is power in silence, a power that allows the seeds of creation to take root without interference. In this silence, the idea can take form, can grow and evolve, free from the weight of expectation. The more you share too soon, the more you expose it to forces that may dilute its true essence. The more you speak, the more you risk losing the purity of the original vision. The true artist knows this, that creation is sacred. It is not something to be shared prematurely, not something to be discussed before it has reached its full potential. The silence surrounding an idea is the space in which it can breathe, grow, and become what it was meant to be. In that silence, the artist is allowed to cultivate their creation, to nurture it until it is strong enough to stand on its own. And so, there is wisdom in keeping your ideas close, guarding them like precious seeds. You do not need the validation or approval of others in the early stages. It is in the quiet of your own mind that the true magic happens. Only when the idea has matured, when it has become something that can withstand the light of day, should you dare to speak of it. Until then, let silence be your ally, and let your creation grow unimpeded. Emotional weaknesses. The vulnerability of the heart. To expose one's emotional weaknesses is to stand naked before a world that may never understand the delicate fabric of your inner life. Weakness is not something to be paraded, nor is it a thing to be shared in the hope that others will understand. It is the rawest part of us, the part that trembles in the face of pain, the part that bleeds when touched. To reveal it is to offer up your soul to those who may not possess the empathy to handle it, to those who are not equipped to carry the weight of your sorrow. Emotional vulnerability is the paradox of being human. It is the source of our most Profound connections, yet also the place where we are most exposed to harm. What good is it to lay bare your heart to those who have not been touched by pain in the same way? How can you trust those whose own wounds have not driven them to understand the delicate balance between strength and fragility? To speak of your emotional weaknesses is to risk being misunderstood, dismissed, or worse, exploited. The moment you reveal your pain, you give others the power to shape it, to twist it, and to use it against you. Our weaknesses are not meant to be worn like badges of honor, displayed for the world to see. They are not there for public consumption, not there to be admired or condemned. They are the hidden corners of our existence, the places we retreat to when the world becomes too much to bear. In silence, we protect them. We honor them by keeping them safe from the prying eyes of those who cannot understand. It is only in solitude that we can truly confront our emotional weaknesses and heal them. To speak of them is to risk leaving them open for attack, vulnerable to the judgment of those who cannot see the depth of our wounds. The heart, in all its fragility, is not made to be thrown into the light. It is an intimate fortress, and only those who have earned the right to enter should ever be allowed to do so. To speak of our emotional weaknesses is to invite others into a space they may never fully comprehend, a space that could leave them uncomfortable, unsettled, or worse, indifferent. Silence in this regard is an act of self-preservation. It is not about hiding the truth, but about guarding that which is sacred, the pieces of us that make us human, but that require protection to endure. In the end, emotional weakness is not something to be displayed in public. It is not a sign of failure, but a testament to the depth of our experience. The heart may be fragile, but it is also resilient, and it thrives in the quiet moments when it is allowed to heal on its own terms. To speak too soon, to expose it to the harshness of the world, is to deny it the chance to mend, to be reborn. Instead, choose silence and let your heart find its strength in the solitude that protects it. Only then can you emerge whole, unbroken, and capable of confronting the world without fear of being torn apart. Dislike for others. The poison of hatred. Hatred is not simply an emotion. It is a slow poison, one that corrupts the heart and the mind, turning the very essence of life into bitterness. The more you pour it out, the more it seeps into your own soul, eroding your sense of peace, your clarity, your capacity for joy. To speak of your hatred is to invite that poison to take root deep within, to allow it to fester in places you never intended it to. It is a dark force, one that once unleashed, never truly leaves. It lingers, festers, and waits for the moment when it can consume you whole. To discuss your hatred, to voice it aloud, is to open the doors to a darkness that will eventually close in around you. The more you speak of it, the more it defines you, the more it shapes your reality. Hatred is a consuming thing. It begins with a spark, a small irritation, and grows until it becomes all-encompassing. The act of expressing it does not diminish. It feeds it. Every word you utter in its name strengthens its grip on you, and soon you find yourself trapped in a cage of your own creation, a cage built from the very emotion you sought to expel. Silence, then, becomes the only refuge from this poison. To hold your tongue, to silence the inner urge to lash out, is to protect yourself from the very thing that seeks to destroy you. The one who endures, who chooses not to speak of their hatred, is the one who remains free. They retain control over themselves, over their emotions, refusing to let the venom of hatred stain their hearts. They do not give it life. They do not give it power. By keeping it within, they turn it into something they can master, something that does not define them, something they can rise above. Hatred is a shadow that grows only in the light of attention. The more you shine that light, the more it spreads. consuming all in its path. To remain silent is to deny it the space to grow. It is an act of strength to withhold your venom, to let it dissipate in the silence before it can take hold. The one who speaks of their hatred becomes a slave to it, bound by the chains they themselves have forged. But the one who chooses silence, who chooses restraint, is free. They are not bound to the darkness. They rise above it, untouched by its poison. In the end, hatred, when spoken, becomes part of the speaker. It infects not only the one they hate, but also themselves. It is a cycle that spirals, ever deepening, never allowing escape. But in silence, in restraint, there is liberation. There is power. The one who remains silent in the face of hatred, who refuses to let it define their being, is the one who triumphs. Over it, hatred is a poison, but it is a poison that can be avoided if only we choose to remain silent, to let it pass us by without taking root. Dreams and ambitions, the quiet aspiration. Dreams are not meant to be spoken of. They are not the currency of the world to be traded for approval or validation. They are sacred, a quiet fire that burns within, unseen by the eyes of others, like a flame tucked deep within the chest. They provide warmth and direction, guiding us forward without the need for recognition. The moment you speak of them, you risk extinguishing their quiet power, exposing them to the winds of doubt, to the cold air of skepticism. Words can cut through dreams, shattering them with the blunt force of reality. What was once a flickering spark of potential becomes a thing of fragile words, easily dismissed, easily forgotten. To share your dreams is to invite them to be judged, to be examined and dissected by those who may not understand their true depth. When they are exposed to the world, they no longer belong to you alone. The world will chew them up with its harshness, its cynicism, and its inability to see the beauty of what lies beneath the surface. The dream that once burned brightly now flickers, vulnerable to the world's cold indifference. You may find yourself lost, searching for the same fire that once drove you, only to find that it has been doused by your own words. True ambition, like the quiet aspiration of a lone traveler moving toward an unseen destination, does not require an audience. It does not need to be paraded, for its power lies in its silence. The dreams that burn within you are the ones that keep you moving, that push you forward even when the world seems to offer no path. They are not for others to consume, but for you to nourish, for you to protect. In silence, they grow stronger, taking root in the very core of your being, where no criticism can touch them. The greatest ambitions are those that do not seek approval. They are the ones that rise from the depths of the soul, untouched by the shallow judgments of the world. They do not need to be validated by others, for they are already validated by the fire that burns within you. They are not meant to be shouted out from the rooftops, but whispered quietly to yourself for you alone to hear. In this silence, they find their strength, their clarity, their purpose. So, let your dreams remain your secret. Let them be the quiet aspiration that guides you, the fire that burns within, unseen but ever present. Do not let the world steal their power by turning them into words. Let them remain what they are meant to be, silent, steadfast, and unbroken. They are yours to carry, yours to protect, and yours to realize. Speak of them only when they are, no longer dreams, but the reality you have forged through your silent pursuit. Until that moment comes, let them burn quietly, and let that quiet aspiration be your guide. As we come to the end of this journey through the quiet spaces of life, remember that silence holds more power than words. The unspoken truths, the unshared dreams, and the unseen struggles are what define us. Let the noise of the world fade and listen to the quiet whisper within. Protect your essence, keep your fire burning, and let your actions speak louder than your words. May you find strength in your silence, wisdom in your restraint, and peace in knowing which parts of your life are meant to remain untouched by others. Stay true to yourself.